show Farm Week with your host Omar Pinzan. Today we have continued with our special in the international agricultural markets. Our commodity cocoa, which I am very pleased since I actually grew up drinking the best hot cocoa there is in my native Colombia. And I actually am going to make my own hot cocoa recipe here for all of you. Let's start with some short origins and history of cocoa. Cocoa is a tropical fruit, original from the basin of the Amazonas and of the Orinoco. Its scientific name is Theobroma coco, means food of the gods. Chocolate comes from the seeds of the cacao tree, first discovered by the Mayans over 3,000 years ago. The Mayans took the tree and started growing many of them close by for cacao, mixing it with different ingredients to make it spicy. The priests presented cocoa offerings to the gods and served cocoa drinks during secret ceremonies. Europe's first contact with chocolate came during the conquest of America by Spain conquerors in the early 1500s. The true importance of this brown gold was recognized by the Spaniards as food and currency. The Spanish mixed the bean with other sugar, vanilla, clove, and cinnamon to make a specialized drink reserved for the nobility. The chocolate was a well-kept secret from the world from the Spanish. It wasn't until 1643 that cocoa was introduced to the French royalty and became extremely popular in the reign of Louis XIV and its court de Versailles. The king saw a money-making opportunity and French started to manufacture and sell chocolates. It became quickly a craze in Paris and London. Chocolate reputation as an aphrodisiac started at this time. Cocoa spread across the continents. In 1755, the chocolate wave arrived to America. Finally, chocolate became affordable during the industrial era. The chocolate bar from eating was developed in London around 1830. After Europeans began to colonize Africa, they brought the cocoa tree with them and cocoa plantations spread throughout the African continent. In effect, since the start of the 20th century, Africa has taken the lead and has become the biggest cocoa producer. Now that we know the origins and the history, let's talk about cocoa bean production in the world. Cocoa, often nicknamed black gold, is mainly cultivated in West Africa, Latin America, and Asia. 45 countries produce cocoa, and 10 of these countries are responsible for 90% of the world's production, which is estimated to be 3 million tons a year and represents more than $4 billion in sales figures. The 8 countries include the Ivory Coast, Ghana, Indonesia, Nigeria, Brazil, Cameroon, Ecuador, Colombia, Peru, and Malaysia. Let's take a closer look to the bigger producers. In Africa we have Ivory Coast. Some 900,000 farmers grow cocoa in Cote d'Ivoire, and 3.5 million of the country's 22 million inhabitants live directly off the crop, who cultivate it in small farms about 5 to 10 hectares. In Ivory Coast, the production soars from 1 to 1.5 million tons of cocoa beans per year. It's the world's largest producer of cocoa with 39% of the world production. Ghana, after a long time at the top of cocoa production, is now second, producing 18% of the cocoa beans in the world. Most of the time, cocoa is cultivated in family farms of less than 10 hectares. The yield is poor on those farms where the trees have aged. Nigeria produces about 6.0% of the world beans. The soil and the climate are favorable to cocoa cultivation, but there is a lack of land available for growing. Nigeria is in 4th place of world cocoa production. We now have Cameroon, which is Cameroon's main export. The plantations with an average size of 3 hectares are cultivated by a maximum of 3 employees to obtain a yield of 300 kilograms per year. Now we are moving on to Central and South America. As our main producer, we have Brazil, largest producer of cocoa in recent years. Brazil has seen its production drop after 1989 with the witch's broom disease. It spread throughout the Bahia region. Coming in at first place is Latin America cocoa production with approximately 163,000 tons of cocoa. Brazil keeps most of its cocoa beans to cater for the internal market, and still Brazil produces about 5 to 6% of world beans. Ecuador is currently the 7th largest producer of cocoa. Ecuador produces 78,000 tons of cocoa per year, about 3% of the world beans. The average size of cocoa plantation is around 5 hectares. A large part of Ecuadorian cocoa is cultivated by small farmers. In recent years, production has slowed down due to weather conditions. Colombia is a producer also in South America of cocoa beans that are famous for its great flavor and aroma. Produces about 40,000 tons, about 1% of the world bean production. Its production and cultivating area is increasing greatly, about 30% in a period of 5 years. Same as output yields, however most of cocoa is used for internal consumption. Now we move on to Asia and Oceania. Indonesia, following a spectacular growth and expansion of the cocoa plantations in the last 20 years, has become the 3rd largest producer of cocoa in the world. About 13% of cocoa-grown regions after Spanish introduced the cocoa tree in 1560. Malaysia, the cocoa cultivation is recent. Production started to blossom in 1970s. Malaysia boasts an important cocoa processing industry. Its products, cocoa butter and cocoa powder, are made predominantly for exportation, producing about 1% of the world beans. Let's now talk about the cocoa market. Total production of cocoa has increased from 3.6 million metric tons in 2007 and 2008 to 3.98 million metric tons in 2011 to 2012 years. Africa has been in and is projected to remain the principal cocoa producer with 73% of the market share as of last year. Production for the 2012-2013 season is expected to approximately match demand. Primary cocoa consumption, measured by the total world grindings of cocoa beans, continued along an upward trend, growing at an average rate of 2.9% per year. However, world grindings have increased almost every year with the exception of 2008 and 2009, when they collapsed in the midst of the global economic crisis. Now, looking at some market trends, we can see that, and according to this graph, we can see that consumption in Europe is projected to grow by 1.7% per year and reach 1.4 million tons. Europe is likely to continue to be the world's largest cocoa consumption region, accounting for 40% of global cocoa consumption in 2013. North America, the world's 2nd largest cocoa consumption region, is likely to grow by 3.6% per year and reach 703,000 tons by 2013. Consumption in developing countries as a whole is expected to account to 1.3 million tons by 2014, an annual growth rate of 1.8%. Unfortunately, for the cocoa farms and the farmers, the price of cocoa is not something that is stable or growing. And although cocoa has had some recent downward trends, cocoa future contracts are still traded in London, New York, and Singapore. They are very attractive to investors because cocoa is unique among soft commodities and it's linked with two currencies, the Great Britain pound and the US dollars. As I mentioned before, cocoa beans are used to make a great variety of products. Principally, let's see this video of the complex process from the bean to the bar.
These are the cocoa beans. The beans and pulp go to the fermentation area, where workers lay them in boxes or heaps and cover them for 4 to 6 days. As heat under the cover builds up, fermentation kicks in. The natural sugars interact with oxygen. The pulp slowly breaks down, liquefies, and drains away. The color and chemical composition of the beans change, and they become less acidic and develop a chocolatey taste. The next step is to dry the beans. Workers spread them out on big trays and lay them out in the sun for about a week. The dried beans now go through a selection process. Workers examine them, removing pod remnants and any beans with mold or other imperfections. Beans which fail inspection are sold locally at a lower price, or go to the compost heap. Beans that pass are weighed, bagged for export, and sold to chocolate makers.
So to make chocolate, basically you start with cocoa beans. We have two different types of cocoa beans here. This batch is from Dominican Republic, and that's from Madagascar. They're both organic, and the first step we do, of course, is to roast them. We roast in this modified coffee roaster. They roast for about an hour, and the degree of roast determines what kind of character the chocolate will have. So the next step in the chocolate making process is to grind down the nibs. We use a machine called a mélangeur. It consists of a couple of big, huge 200-pound granite rollers that slowly crush, and pulverize those cocoa nibs to create a thick brown paste called cocoa liquor. This machine is called a conch. And what it does is, it's the final step in chocolate making. It removes some of the acids and off flavors in the chocolate. And what comes out of the conch after 48 hours of processing is the ultimately unique, amazing product known as chocolate. So what we're going to do is make chocolate bars. So to make a chocolate bar, you fill the mold full of tempered chocolate. You scrape off the excess, and then you place it on the vibrating table in order to remove all the bubbles from the chocolate.
Now that you guys have seen the complex process, let me show you how to make the best hot cocoa using cocoa from the best country in the world, Colombia. First, you need a cocoa pot or hot chocolate pot. It's very unique. You won't find these in America, so you may want to bring one of these from Colombia. But you can either use water or milk. I prefer milk. It gives more like a creamy flavor to the chocolate. Measure 2 cups of milk for 2 people. So this is going to be our second cup of milk. Okay, now we have raw cocoa. This is different from the chocolate that you eat at the supermarket, that you buy anywhere else for consumption. So you wanna, this comes in little kind of blocks, and so you wanna use 1 block per cup of chocolate. Okay, now we wait for the milk to boil with the chocolate, but as it boils, we need to use this, which is kind of like a mixer. As we can see, we have to do this motion so that the chocolate dissolves properly. As you can see, it's boiling now, and it's gonna rise. So just watch it, and then take it off. So you keep stirring it. It's now done, so it's ready to be served. Steamy. And now we serve it. And there you go. Hot cocoa from the best cocoa in the world. Cocoa is mainly consumed as chocolate confectionery. Chocolate-coated products such as biscuits and ice creams or in other food products containing cocoa powder, including beverages, cakes, and snacks. Let's take a closer look at the major consumers of chocolate in the world and the market share of the main chocolate manufacturers. Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom are the most known countries for manufacturing high-end quality chocolates. And they are also the largest consumers of chocolate in the world. Although the US is a major demander of cocoa beans, it is not a major consumer of chocolate or manufactured chocolate compared to the European counterpart. In here, we can see the market share is spread among different companies. Mars, a US company who manufactures Snickers and M&Ms, holds about 19% of market share and is the largest manufacturer of chocolates in the world. Mondelez, a Canadian company who manufactures the Cadbury chocolates, holds about 17% of the market share. Nestle, a Swiss multinational who manufactures all sorts of treats, holds about 14%. From there, we have Hershey's, an American company, Ferrero, an Italian company, together with other smaller chocolatiers, account for 50% of the market share globally. To conclude this macroeconomic snapshot of the cocoa market, I want to mention a big issue related to the cocoa production, which is child labor in modern slavery, predominantly in West Africa. CNN Freedom Project reports that in the Ivory Coast alone, there are an estimated 200,000 children working in the fields, many against their will, all to satisfy the world's thirst for chocolate. Large chocolate manufacturers encourage the problem even further because they control the market price. It is not only until recently that the World Cocoa Foundation and the International Cocoa Initiative initiated a fair trade labeling, incentivizing manufacturers and consumers to buy at fair prices. My dad, a former cocoa entrepreneur in Colombia, may he rest in peace, was a big advocate for fair prices around the world, working side by side with the WCF, helping farmers get fair prices by advocating to the government in encouraging larger companies to buy at fair prices to reduce child labor and slavery. In Colombia, child labor is not a big issue per se, but in low-income rural areas, child labor sometimes becomes the standard. To advocate for fair trade prices is not an easy task, because large manufacturers are in control of the demand, thus leaving the growers and the farmers no choice but to sell at these unfair prices. Projects like these and advocates like my dad and many others could make a change. Thank you for your attention, and I leave you now to listen to the Fair Trade Initiative project along with the credits for this project.
The chocolate song! Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stop what you're doing, sit back and relax, and listen to the story of Max. It's time to sing along with the chocolate song!
Bonjour! C'est ce qu'on va faire, c'est tout simple comme 1, 2, 3. C'est la chanson des petits garçons en chocolat. Il est sympa et tout à fait intelligent. Il joue le foot et reste relax. On l'appelle le Max.
Feeling an amazing fact you will say, is that so? More than 500,000 people depend on growing cacao. 200,000 children get no school education, cause they're working full-time on their cacao plantation. It's time to make a change. It's never too late. You can help them all to school when you buy fair trade.
Maintenant, vous connaissez la chanson. C'est très facile comme 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, come along with me. Let me show you the fruit of the cacao tree. 4, 5, 6, let me show you my football tricks. 7, 8, 9, we are fair trade and we're feeling fine. We're feeling fine. We're feeling fine. We're feeling
Chocolat! Oui, oui, mes amis. There's a message here for you and me.
chocolat.
When you buy fair trade, you help a child in need. Chocolate can be bitter, but hey, life can be so sweet.